Well, I lead listeners, I am so thankful and grateful to have one of our region's leading leaders. She has taken on the awesome responsibility of leading one of the oldest NAACP branches in the country. It is known for its work in this community and beyond. And anybody in NAACP ultimately has to go through the East St. Louis branch to get a head nod. And she is the leader of that, as well as so many other areas in the community, Panhellenic Society or community here in our area, in the St. Louis metropolitan area on both sides of the Mississippi. And I'm grateful and thankful to have her to be a part. Now, she's going to really share some great gems in terms of leadership and how you can best your leadership in any area, in any room that you find yourself in. Robin, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Bishop, for having me.
Well, we're glad that you are a part. And I just simply want to ask right off the bat, your definition of leadership.
Ooh. And without referring to Webster, I think a good leader is an individual who is capable of following, but definitely a person who has individuals who want to follow them. So the leader, I always say, you're not a leader if nobody's following you. If you're on your own. So, but I do believe a good leader has to be a good follower as well.
So you have to be a good follower. I always have in my church, I always say, look, I rotate the leaders in the various areas because I say to them, I want you to be in a position to know that you once will have to follow. And if you have to follow, then you perhaps will be an even better leader. And so I think there's a lot to that. And I want to ask this question beyond that in your definition. What would be where you see your definition being activated the most in all of the areas from your church life, devout Catholic, your family life, your professional life, working in education, in special education and all of that, and even in your personal life? Where would you hone in on and what would you focus in on? So that would be the part that I really would like for you to see leadership at its best.
I'd say it's my walk. I believe that if I am to be a good leader, then I have to try and practice what I preach.
Okay.
And be a good example of what I want to see happen. So as I lead, I try, again, I'm trying to get individuals to see what it is I put forth. If I have good attitude, if I'm bringing forth, hard work. So my due diligence is what I'm asking. I see a lot of people preach or make the statements, they're quoting things, but if the actions don't follow, then it kind of, it kind of sways my perception of the leadership.
St. Francis Assisi, I think, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, he says, preach all the time and speak if you have to.
Okay.
I think that's kind of what you're saying. Preach all the time and speak if you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And so in all of these areas, the Jack and Jill, former president of the East St. Louis chapter, past president of Lincoln University, the Missouri Alumni Association, in this area, and in so many areas that you have leadership in. The leadership that you found yourself in the NAACP, you stepped in to a situation that was less than desirable. What went through your mind when you stepped in to lead the organization in a transitional moment that it was in?
What I knew at that moment was that I was serving as a vice president.
Okay.
And I believe if you're going to serve as vice president, you're supposed to stand ready if you ever have to step into the presidency. That's if you look into the any kind of bylaws or whatever about a vice president. So I knew that going in, but never expected that it would happen. But as it did, I just honed in on everything I knew to be true about leading. Again, leading by example. I knew that I needed to come in with a shared vision. I knew that I needed to, jump into action. It wasn't a lot of time for, so to speak, a transition. But again, as a vice president, I had already I'm being prepped. I'm already ready. I'm already making some decisions and serving as a leader. So it wasn't a real hard fit. The biggest fit is that NAACP is a little different than other orgs, because, the other organizations I've been a part of, because it is an umbrella over any and everybody. Whereas if I'm with my sorority or, then we know everybody there wants to be a part of that sorority. And shameless plug, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay, shameless plug.
Or no shame.
Okay.
Or my church. I'm actually Catholic. And so I know what I'm working with when I'm there and at work. I know if these people, I'm thinking, you know how special education works. You know how to write an individualized educational plan. But with NAACP, all of that is under that umbrella. You can come from right off the street. You can come from the church, you can come from the school, you can be a politician. All of them are under that umbrella. And I knew that my special education background would help me with that, because we believe in diversity. And so everybody matters. And so it helped. And I knew, again, pay attention, stay focused, jump in and do what you need to do for the good of all.
Special education background, we tend to want to sometimes look at that down our nose. Not you, of course, but sometimes the culture, society does that. We have jokes, the short bus and so on and so forth. But really, when I look at special education, it speaks to what you just said, the ability to find the uniqueness and the giftedness of every individual at whatever level. And that's very much like leadership, would you not say?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are very keen in picking up on that, because sometimes about, I say, you're so special. Yeah, you are, and they do, they talk down, but you're special in your own way. And I receive everybody in their own way. I don't know that I could be the leader I am if I did not receive individuals where they are, which is much of what we do with special education. I'm going to meet you where you are, and we're going to work with that.
In a diverse community, what skill set do you draw on in working? And we look at diversity and inclusion and so on and so forth. And some political perspectives look down upon that. But in fact, it is an enhancement of where we're going. What skill set do you tap in when you look at diversity and inclusion and leading an organization like the NAACP and the Pan-Atlantic, for that matter?
I'm going to say my communication skills.
Okay.
I believe that I have to do some listening, and might I say, just in case that somebody listens that knows me, and I'm a work in progress all the time, but I practice trying to listen and communicate as effectively as I can, so that I can get your understanding, you can get my understanding, and then we can move forward. Sometimes just the smallest piece of miscommunication can, make the difference in you being successful or not. and just getting the message through. So that is, I bring it home and I take it everywhere, and I just communication. We've got to communicate.
When you talk about that, that you're a work in progress, Robin, it bespeaks of a sense of transparency and vulnerability that is actually quite attractive as a leader. So when you are espousing that vulnerability and transparency, how do you try to craft it in a way that it does not display weakness, but strength? That transparency and vulnerability. I think we froze. You talked about your vulnerability and transparency. How do you craft that and present that in such a way that it shows strength and not weakness when you're leading others?
It's funny you say the vulnerability, because it does make me vulnerable. And I sometimes have to say out loud, um, do not take my kindness for weakness. I am purposefully opening the door for certain things, or allowing some things to um, come out into the open from, if somebody asks a question or brings something to the floor, and it's not necessarily on the agenda, we have to review, it should come so that it's been reviewed. So sometimes I'm open to some change. I'm open to, okay, go ahead and share that. But I have to be really careful. So I try to practice being consistent. So although I'm being diverse and I'm opening up and allowing, something new maybe to hit the floor, I try to be very consistent with that and understand that, once I do this, I'll open myself up, or this organization up, to, something else to occur that may not be best for the organization. But I'm always trying to see, can we work something out? Because again, for the NAACP, there's a lot of differences. And I want us to, while we're different, make that a positive for the sake of the organization. And so it's funny that you picked up on it. It definitely makes me feel vulnerable. But, I want to be open. I want to be as fair as possible. We know life's not fair, but we can be consistent in our expectations and in the walk we, put forth. So I practice.
Well, clearly you are practicing very well because you're leading very well. And one of the things that I have found in leadership is consistency is critical, because then it causes people to be able to manage their expectations. And when they can self-manage, that's just an added benefit to it. Given that, and you're saying, okay, sometimes I have to simply say to people, wait a minute, don't take this niceness for weakness. What would you say was the most challenging thing you had to face as a leader, and how did you overcome
Well, one thing I tell myself, I say, wow, my mother and father didn't prep me for this one. And I ran into a situation where I had a member who was not honest. Matter of fact, they were just outright deceitful. And they were not managing finances. And it was very interesting. So I had to pull back, remove personal relationship, feelings. I just had to, stay focused on what was best for the organization. I had to get some documentation and clarity to what's going on. But in the midst of it, I will say that I remembered, and this is just a cliche, but what would Jesus do? I was not out to hurt anybody. It wasn't personal. I don't ever intend to impact negatively anybody's livelihood, but I needed to clean house and get the situation in order. And it was a really, really hard process for me, personally and internally, because again, when you know people, when you know, shame on me for thinking that people are moving forward, trying to do the right thing. But I do know everybody gets, caught up in certain things. And so that was that piece, I dealt with it. I just stuck, to the facts and the process of what was going on and how we're going to address it. And I did not focus on trying to retaliate or, go back and see what I could do to the individual. That wasn't the purpose. That wasn't the point. It was about getting us back on track. And so I did that, and I stayed clear of the person.
Give me the 1, 2, 3s of that situation.
1, 2, 3. What is our position? What is our status here? What are we going to do about it? And I guess that's how are we going to get there? And then let's set up some procedures. So, hey, what's the status? And how are we going to handle this? What are we going to do? And then what is our process from here on out?
So it sounds as if focus, vision, and outcomes and objectives is a critical piece in leading people in difficult times. That was one difficult time that you had to deal with. Let me ask a different question. Can you recall when your development as a leader came into the fore? In other words, you were really, really clear on the fact that, okay, man, I was developed in this area. Prior to us starting, you were saying we were talking about our experience in undergrad and how our majors kind of overlap. And you were sharing about your communication skills. Is there a time now in your leadership where you can say, wow, I remember this my leadership development has prepared me for this moment? And what was the moment and the development?
I don't know if I can pinpoint the moment. I think when I look back, I've been working on it since high school, at least. I don't know. When you look back, you say, oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that about me. But I was in high school, I was co-captain of the pom-pom squad. I was the president of the youth group for the Catholic Youth Organization. And as president, my mother would always get on me. I literally would plan out the events, get all the youth from everywhere. We had an awesome group. And we utilized my car, my mother's car, my father. I took all excuses away and set it up so that everybody could get where we needed to go. And my mother's like, how are you going to do that? But I did. And they allowed me to do that. They just, helped us out and drove everybody. And then I moved on to college. And again, I ended up, I was a junior, senior class president. I was a liaison for the student body between the SGA and the actual student body. There was this group. It was called the Senate Pro Tem. But again, who knew? And so again, it was just who I was. It just kind of fell into who I was. I moved on to be, created a pom-pom squad at the college level, went to Lincoln University in Jefferson City. And then once I graduated and I worked, I didn't want to be the boss. I had no intentions on the job to be anybody's supervisor. And
how long did that last?
Well, you know, it doesn't matter what your title is sometimes because you end up being viewed a certain way. So I just wrote out the speech therapist as long as I could. And then I think it was my sorority that saw something in me and they nurtured me to keep on. And at one point it was like, you can't keep doing this. When I like something, I do it and I'll just keep doing it and improve on it, improve on that. And they said, you need to move up. And it just happened. And so those skills, but don't forget my parents were always pouring into me. I mean, never let me, they didn't allow you to be weak and make excuses. And my mother was actually an awesome role model. She was one of those people that when you said you want something to get done, hey, go ask Edna. If you wanted it to hit the floor and you wanted somebody to talk about it, she was that person. So I watched that throughout my life as well. But again, I don't know that there was a moment, but I will say recently, as the president of the National Pan-Atlantic Council, I had not planned to do that, but it happened. And that's being the president of 10 to 12 different organizations. And I dealt mostly with the leaders who I consider all super smart and more talented than me, because they're leading their individual organizations. And in my period of 8 years as their president, I had probably 40 leaders working with me, and not under me, but with me.
Wow.
And allowed me to share and to encourage them to be united, because we are the best, right? We're all the best. We're the baddest, we're the greatest. And I encouraged the unity amongst them. And that's when I said, you know what? Just maybe, I'm doing something right here.
So it sounds like to me that you have had more than a couple or three instances in which you did not really care to be the leader, but here is the scripture: your gift made room for you.
All right. I'll
Yeah,
receive that.
yeah, your gift made room for you. You emerged. And sometimes it is easier for others to see it in us than we ourselves.
Yeah. I purposefully didn't get a master's degree in leadership or administration my first 20 years of my career because I was good. I'm a speech therapist. I'm pretty good at it. I'm good. Because speech therapists, we're just our own. We're in our own cyclone. So once I went ahead and received my degree in educational administration, then the kind of start snowballing that way as well. Because I learned some things and understood that if you're going to be a leader, you have to lead by example, and that if everybody in the room is taking shots, I'm not doing that. I'm not on the same page, because I respect what I do, and what I do over here in this room is also how I'm viewed when I leave that room. So all that I learned, and I have choices. I'm an adult, but I practice. I try. Again, I'm a work in progress, and I'm practicing what I preach.
Well, you know what? You can only practice it. The one that perfected it was crucified. So that's what we all do. It gets us really close to almost the very end of what we want to share with all Ali listeners in terms of leading in community organizations. Can you speak to the listeners who say, I want to lead in the community. I want to have impact, influence, and make changes in my community. What would you tell them?
Well, I actually remember thinking like that when I was younger. And you see a great leader, or you see somebody that's doing something impactful, and you think, I want to do that. And I don't know that we all get to choose whether or not we're going to be the leader. But if you work hard and you walk the walk instead of just talking about it, talking the walk. And I've been saying this a lot lately, and I'm believing it, and I feel it. You be that change you want to see happen, but you be just what you want yourself to be. I think if you just do it, stay the course, and again, if they could be the secretary, or they could be a custodian, they could be anybody they want to be, and a leader in those shoes, because it is how they present themselves, and it's not just about you. You got to remember to be inclusive as possible and to meet people where they are. So it's a lot of skills to the process, and you're always trying to figure it out. But I think if you practice what you preach, then people will see that.
Well, Robin, I really appreciate you sharing these gems with us, and from the governor of Illinois to the senators, to the congressmen, to everybody that has ever been on iLead podcast, they've had to answer this one question before they can get off. And it's the last question, and that is this. How do you lead in any room you find yourself in?
It's funny because sometimes I'm doing it without trying to, unintentional. I'm just there. But I do believe when you walk into a room, you have your head up, hold it high, speak with some level of conviction of what you're saying, and people will gravitate towards you as a leader. And I know you know this because you do it. I watch. And it's just the way you come in and command the room unintentionally most times. And I do believe people will receive you as what you present and how you carry yourself. I'm having a conversation with a niece, nephew now, thinking about some things about the future. And again, it is presentation matters.
Presentation matters. I had a full colonel tell me once when I was active duty in the Air Force, and I was really wanting to know, how do I get promoted to the next grade? And he said, half of it is showing up and how you look.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other half wasn't too easy, but that half was that half was a lot easier than the other half. But God bless. Robin, do you want to leave anything with our listeners in terms of, how do I emerge? How do I become the leader that I'm attempting to be before we close out?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to you for having me again. And I would ask that you and any of your listeners feel free to join me on my quest to be as impactful to the community as possible. At this point in my life, if I am not making an impact, and that is moving forward, we say moving the pendulum forward, if that is not happening, I'm probably just standing in some mud, and and time is valuable. So I would just ask that all listeners consider the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People be something that they see as a mission to the world, that we help those that are less fortunate, that are living in marginalized communities and situations that are just unjust, and make that a part of your everyday being, whether or not you're a member of the NAACP or not. But allow yourself.
Shameless plug. If you're not a member of the NAACP, please do so. I am one. I'm a lifetime member. And I want to encourage all of the listeners now. I say, with the things that we have up against us as marginalized individuals, as people of former slaves, and those who are on the margins of life, which the NAACP is so and attentive to. I say these three things. If you want to make sure that you have impact and change in the community, vote every election, no matter what the election is. If it's local, if
Yes.
it's midterm, vote. If it's for the dog catcher, vote.
Yeah.
The second thing is get involved with an organization that is serving those who are on the margins of life. And third, engage yourself in a church that is social justice oriented, that cares about social justice. And Robin can't say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm a lifetime member. Join the NAACP wherever you are, however you listen, and watch God use you and that organization to have impact. Any final words on behalf of the NAACP in terms of this area and nationally, with all of the things that we're up against now? People are coming against all of the various things. I can't ever think of it. I think of the, oh my God, the educational piece.
Affirmative action.
I'm sorry,
Affirmative action.
affirmative action, but also the piece that everybody said you can't, we don't want you to teach this in our classrooms anymore, or
Yes, education and the books that they don't want us to have about our history.
correct.
And a woman's right to her decisions about her body. I mean, there's lots of issues, and coming together, uniting. We have all these different pieces, but if we came together, there is power in number. And if we could, join forces, and again, you're right, find a good church that can support it, because we did not get where we are without having churches as the root, our base, our home. Even Underground Railroad, we had churches. Well, the True Light, historically in East St. Louis, was the bell ringing church. We just talked about the 1917 riots, so we could go on. Good history, and I'm learning that all the time, and going back to reread things that I, may have half read, barely read, haven't read in a while. And so I thank you for allowing me to share that.
So if you're in this area, please connect. And if you're beyond this area, connect with the NAACP. And I don't know whether you know this, and I know we're kind of a little bit off subject, but I'm going to kind of close with this, that we started our branch here in this area of the region, and I was the first president of that. But I can't. I'm way too busy. I commend you for doing what you do. It is not an easy thing to do, because, as you said, you're taking the whole community and trying to speak to all of those diverse interests and all of that. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you. And I did know you were the president. I did get that piece of history. I congratulate you on that, on your time there, and getting it started up in the O'Fallon area. But you're right, it is a job, and for the listeners, it is an unpaid job. As far as finances, it has to be a labor of love.
Absolutely, absolutely. What does that say? You'll get your reward by and by.
By and by.
Well, thank you, Robin, so much. And ILE listeners, please make sure that you tap into it. If you're in this area, I want to encourage you, please, to become a member of either the branches on this side of the river here in the St. Louis metropolitan area, or on the St. Louis side, or wherever you are, because it is critical of the various things that we are up against in this world that is really coming against those who are on the margins of life, and those who are not, but have a different pigmentation. Our melon is a little bit darker than those others. The Lord bless you, keep you. Share this. If it bless you, bless somebody else. Thank you.